Hey guys, and thank you so much for checking out this video. This is going to be the Q&A questions that were asked as a part of the giveaway for my 1K subscribers and channel birthday. I did want to make sure that I recorded it so that all of you that couldn't make it to the live stream could still hear your questions answered. If you were able to make it out to the live stream, say hi in the comments, and here we go. So, question number 1 came out of North Carolina, I believe, Jacksonville. What is your favorite piece of artwork? Your own or another artist's? That's a pretty big question. I've liked a lot of my more recent pieces now that I've been focusing on my color palette a little bit more and limiting it, actually. I think I got a little overwhelmed with color choice, even with traditional mediums, and so now that I've been limiting what colors I use. One of my more recent favorites that I've really enjoyed selling at artist alleys and things like that is my sloth piece. I really liked all the greens and it was fun to make. It was based off a prompt of basically using green as the theme for a zine that I was a part of, and so that's one of mine. Other artists, oh my goodness, most of the ones I'm super inspired by are even individual pieces, but I'll leave a link down below, direct you to go to Pinterest. I have a Pinterest account. I don't upload a ton, but I do have basically an inspired by Pinterest board of specific art pieces that directly inspire me every time I look at them, and those are amazing. Question number 2, do you like Pokemon? What is your favorite Pokemon? Happy birthday, thank you! And yes, I do like Pokemon. Some of my first videos here on YouTube were of some Pokemon related art, and I still have some. I definitely collected Pokemon cards when I was younger because I'm definitely in that generation, and I have played games here and there. I've only more recently, in recent years, gotten back into the games, and I do play Pokemon Go occasionally, especially when I'm traveling to try to get new fun Pokemon. I have a few favorites. I typically will say Eevee just because I love variety, and that's one of those Pokemon that can be almost anything, and so I just love that it can turn into all these different possibilities, but really anything Pokemon related. I love the fox Pokemon, which there's a lot. They're cute, fun, new creatures that are kind of whimsical. Of course I'm gonna like them. What is your favorite thing to paint? When did you start taking art seriously? That's out of Germany. Thank you so much for your question. Favorite thing to paint? Probably just plants in general. Certain animals, I definitely like drawing and painting a lot, like octopi or octopuses. Yeah, and animals and plants in general. When did I start taking art seriously? I made art my entire life, and I attempted to take it seriously here and there. Like, I have a studio art degree and stuff like that, but I didn't really take it seriously as a business and as an income until probably 2015. So it's been a few years, maybe 2016 actually, because to the end of 2016 was when I started actively selling at artist alleys, and so I really feel like I viewed my art differently because it was a business and I wanted to be taken seriously, and I started to get serious about building my skills and things like that. What is your favorite part about doing YouTube? This is a question out of the UK. Where do I start? What is my favorite thing about doing YouTube? Honestly, there's 2 things, and they both revolve around community. So first and foremost, I love, and this was something going into YouTube that I was striving for, was to have a community that I could interact with and share my art experiences and just my life experiences with as a freelance artist, and have that connection, and building this community has been awesome. Another community aspect that I wasn't expecting was the other artists on YouTube, and even through Twitter and other avenues that I've met artists, but specifically those that are building their brand through YouTube and making videos. There's a special thing that we share, that we know the struggles of editing video and keeping to a schedule and things like that, that I love that I can connect almost instantly with a lot of other YouTube artists, even if they're a larger channel or smaller than me. I feel like there's a lot that we can instantly connect over, which has been really cool. I wonder what is your favorite medium for your art expression daily? I also wonder if you have made a special wish when you blow out your birthday candles. I definitely don't create or paint or draw daily. That's something that I would love to do, but I realize that that's not necessarily the best thing for me all the time. But when I am creating regularly, definitely watercolor is something I love using, but really any sort of colored sketching pencils are really fun to use, especially if I don't have a lot of time. I'm not going to be able to just do a watercolor painting. There's a lot more thought that needs to go into that, and so really what I gravitate toward is just any old drawing utensil. I will sketch with a ballpoint pen, anything that I can make my mark. If inspiration hits me, that is my current favorite medium at that time. And then I will probably make a wish when I blow out my candle, but we haven't gotten to cake yet today, so not sure, nor would I tell you, because that would mean that I wouldn't be able to have it come true. So thank you for asking though. Do you use water brushes? Yes, I do use water brushes, especially when I'm traveling or if I'm doing art on the go at an artist alley or something like that. I love that it's self-contained. And yeah, I have quite a few at my disposal. I mean, here's, if anyone's not sure what a water brush is, has water in the barrel and it goes through the bristles here, and it's really great for doing watercolor washes and things like that. Not the best for details, but just if you want to sit down and paint some stuff real quick, I love water brushes. What has sold most successfully for you at a convention? You know what? I noticed that artist alleys and conventions all are very unique, which is totally not helpful for answering your question, because really, it sort of just depends on that particular population that's showing up and attendees and stuff. But in general, most recently, my smaller prints, so 5x7 size, I know some people do postcard 4x6, those seem to do pretty well. And most recently for me, stickers have been doing really well. My last convention, I actually sold about as many stickers as I did any of my prints, I think, and it's a nice smaller item that people can take with them because not everyone has wall space anymore, and it's just something that is more useful, I guess, and so people tend to really like stickers. But I would say just look into what you enjoy making and what you would buy from an artist alley and start there. I know some things like enamel pins, I would suggest starting with things that are a little bit easier to produce, like stickers through, I use Sticker app, but there's other places you can get stickers made, prints and stuff like that, and start smaller and something that's a little bit easier to produce. What is your favorite area of art to look at for inspiration? For example, classic art or specific animation styles, etc. That's a pretty good question. I definitely get inspiration directly from certain classic art. So Art Nouveau is a really big inspiration to me, with just how detailed the pieces are and some of the color schemes. And really, I get inspiration from a lot of different places. I'm gonna point back to my Pinterest board where I have a lot of my favorite art pieces from different people. I'm definitely really inspired by color schemes that are more or less like monochromatic, believe it or not, and things like that where you see the details a little bit more. I know that's not necessarily a period of art or a specific style necessarily, but go ahead and check out my Pinterest board and see kind of the stuff that directly inspires me. But I think it's always changing. Ooh, that leads into my next question perfectly. What are your favorite color schemes? So I mentioned certain monochromatic color schemes. I actually am really inspired by the more muted color schemes. So basically not what I do at all. But more muted color schemes of Tegan White is a great artist that I am super inspired by, who does a lot of wildlife things, but it's more of a muted palette. I think I honestly get a lot of inspiration from muted palettes, surprisingly, but definitely also pastels and bright color palettes. I have been doing more bright color palettes and things like that, and so that's where I'm at right now with my art, but like I mentioned before, it's kind of constantly changing. What made you start doing artwork? So I've always drawn. I think honestly it started when I realized being an only child and needing to keep myself entertained. It was easy to always have a pencil and a paper to draw and keep myself busy, but I felt like I had a little bit of some natural talent that I just kept with it, and I didn't really take it seriously until later, as I mentioned before, but I think a lot of it was A, keeping myself busy, and B, it ended up being something that was, now that I think back on it, helping treat my anxiety, because I grew up being pretty anxious. And so drawing helped me to kind of get that out and project it and help me calm down. When you go to conventions, how do you prepare and make sure you earn more money than what you've spent on packaging, vendor license fee, etc.? That's a pretty big one, and I know a lot of people wanting to do artist allies definitely want to know, how am I guaranteeing that I'm going to make money back and I'm actually going to be profiting from this and validated and justified in spending that money and being an artist? And the quick answer is you can't. You can't know if you're gonna make money. A lot of artists go back to conventions that were great the year previous and they've been doing it for years and it doesn't go well. It's just one of those things that is not a constant, unfortunately, like a lot of art and art-related careers. But I will say that a few tips I have that I'll just quickly go over is don't overbuy things. Don't buy too many prints, too many products. Don't expect that people are going to love a certain thing if you aren't sure. A lot of it in the beginning, you won't be making money. You have to invest. It's a business. It's something that you have to spend money first, and that's an unfortunate thing, but if you want to take it seriously, that needs to be an investment that you're okay diving into. And a lot of the packaging and stuff like that is, if you can afford to buy it in bulk, you'll have it for a while, and so that first convention will likely not pay for that, but as you keep doing conventions, those things will be paid for and you'll have a large stock of it, and your costs will go down every single convention you do. Especially if you don't sell all of your things, you have product left over, you can save it for the next convention. But just my advice is be strategic about what products you want to buy, don't go overboard, and test the market first and realize that it's not going to be profitable at the beginning. If it is, that's fantastic, but don't expect that whatsoever. What was the first thing you remember drawing? That is a great question that I don't have a great answer for. One of my first memories with art, it's not necessarily what I was drawing, but a specific art supply that I was excited about, so hopefully that's a good enough answer for you, even though it's not a direct answer, is I remember, I believe we were at a hospital waiting for my cousins to be born, and I was bored because I was young and liked art, so we had paper, and I had just gotten these metallic Crayola crayons, and they were the best thing ever. I couldn't tell you what I drew. I think I had a coloring book, although I didn't really love coloring books. I like drawing my own things more. But these metallic crayons kind of blew my little mind, and I always think back to that's one of my first art making memories. So I hope that's close enough to answering your question. But yeah. What is your next subscriber goal? I mean, any amount of subscribers I am eternally grateful for. I'm excited to celebrate either the 3 or the 5,000 with maybe another giveaway. Hopefully something international like prints, stickers, things like that. But yeah, that's what I'm most excited about next, but really every subscriber I'm really grateful for. This one comes from Meow Meow Kapow. She signed it. Thank you so much. This is a really good question. If you were a dinosaur, which one would you be and why? I've always really liked brontosauruses. Now I'm questioning if I remember the correct name. Basically the long neck dinosaurs, are those brontosauruses? I think it's ever since I watched Littlefoot, or what is it? Land Before Time. Littlefoot from Land Before Time. Whatever kind of dinosaur he is, I watched those movies all the time as a kid, and there's a lot of them. I don't think I've seen all of them. Do you guys realize how many Land Before Time movies there are? It's kind of insane. I always really loved Littlefoot, and so I loved that kind of dinosaur. Have you ever had an issue with your koi watercolors drying with a cracked look on the canson watercolor paper? I can't say that I've had that specific problem with my koi watercolors. I use them less and less now, but when I have used them, I dilute my watercolors so much, especially for my pastel colors and things like that. I'd imagine the thicker your paint is, that could happen with almost any paper. If that's something that's happened to you, I'm curious if it's maybe the thickness of the paint. I'm not sure. What is your favorite art supply, one you can't live without? Up until most recent years, I would say a different art supply or craft supply probably every 6 months, because I love variety, I love trying everything, which is probably detrimental to me focusing on my art career. But when I started taking it seriously, I really dove in with watercolor and marker a little bit on the side. So I have to say watercolor. I've stuck with it this long and I'm not super tired of it. I love it a lot, so that's probably my #1 favorite art supply. What is your favorite art medium? What about it makes it your favorite? Like I mentioned, watercolor is probably my #1 favorite. The big bonuses for me when I started getting into watercolor that I didn't realize would be such a big thing for me was how little you need to paint with. And you can always re-wet it. When I first started painting, I used acrylic, like a lot of people do. I felt like I was wasting so much paint. And I love with watercolor, you can put it down on a palette and constantly re-wet it. And for the most part, get the same amount of pigment if you re-wet it enough and if it's a high quality paint. And so that's probably my most favorite things. I feel like I'm not wasting supplies. That does mean that I have probably way more that I'm never gonna get through, but that's my favorite thing about watercolor. When did you start drawing? Like I mentioned, I have been drawing since I could hold a pencil or a crayon and never really put them down. So yeah, ever since I can remember. What is your favorite art tool? If we're talking about things that aren't necessarily art supplies, which I have talked about a lot, favorite art tool of mine is probably my scanner. I don't think that a lot of people talk about other machinery like your printer or things like that as much with art making, but for me, my scanner is fantastic because it allows me to take anything I've done and be able to reproduce it and scan it and digitally clean up things and turn it into products, and basically allows me to have a good, clean, digitized version of my traditional artwork that I otherwise would have a hard time getting. And it allows me to basically be able to support myself with my art. So that's my favorite tool. How do you paint a galaxy on paper? Are there specific items you need? And I was actually reading over that and thinking about maybe doing a little bit of a live tutorial here on the live stream and maybe doing a video in the future. There's a lot of different ways of doing it, and honestly there's a ton of videos here on YouTube that talk about painting a galaxy. So I mean, do a quick search. For someone who is interested in being a seller in artist alleys at conventions, what products other than prints do you recommend first timer sell? For me, since I have the money to be able to invest it, I ended up getting a button maker right off the bat, but those are expensive. I realize that that's not super accessible to everybody, but I would focus on, aside from prints, other small things. I've mentioned it, stickers are really great, and there's a lot of websites. I can link a few websites down in the description. There's not a huge profit margin, but you can at least test out to see if your artwork works on them. It's a fairly low investment item. That is my main advice. If you're just getting started, the lowest investment possible. Prints are a good one. I would suggest stickers. What is the best way to get water-based paints not to bleed? My main thing that I wanted to mention was learning how to control the water and having patience for when the paint is dry. I know a lot of the time I don't have patience, and sometimes you even see it in my videos where I'll be painting and something will bleed, and that's just mostly because I haven't waited for it to dry. That is my main issue around bleeding. Sometimes it's the paper, sometimes it's the paints, but in my experience, it's been that I'm impatient and I am painting right next to something that is still wet and the colors bleed. And the best thing is to either take breaks. If you have to wait for your paint to dry, maybe get up, stretch your legs, or getting some sort of heat tool that can carefully dry things a little bit faster. But a lot of it has to do with when the water is dry or when the paint is dry. What is your favorite animal? The fox. It's pretty obvious. I do love a lot of different animals. I also love the octopus and a few others, but fox. Fox is my spirit animal, so yep. How do you suggest finding topics to start my own YouTube channel? A lot of it is really figuring out what your channel is about. Really focus on that and try to make it as unique as possible. That's my main thing. You want to shine your own light in a sea of a ton of lights of different channels that are out there, especially within the same kind of, like if it's an art channel, there's a lot of art channels out there, but what makes you unique? Once you can figure out what that is and what that theme and topic is, there's a lot of ways to figure out topics for videos. I feel like I constantly have ideas. I have way more ideas than I can make videos for, which is maybe not the worst problem, but if you're having a hard time getting started, I would say make content and make videos about what you want to see on YouTube. So what you would search for, what interests you, make that content. And you're gonna attract like-minded people that will probably like what you have to say. And also have a journal with you. I know a lot of the time inspiration for both artwork, but also ideas for topics for my channel come randomly to me. And so I have a running list in my bullet journal. I have a list of YouTube ideas and I just quickly jot it down, or even just on a separate piece of paper that I can collect. And yeah, I would say be open to being inspired by lots of different things. But the more you work at it, I feel like at the beginning for me starting a YouTube channel, I didn't necessarily know what to do. So I threw up time-lapse videos of me making art. And that was a good start. And as I started to build an audience, I was able to ask people on Twitter, ask people in the comments, what they wanted to see from me, but I mostly focused on the content that I wanted to share. And so a lot of it's about self-reflection and what you're interested in watching and creating that content. So there are my questions answered. Hopefully you enjoyed them and learned something new about me. If you have more questions that you'd love for me to do another Q&A in the future, you know where to put them. As always, I hope you guys have a creatively fulfilled day and I will see you next time. Bye guys.